Hello and welcome to LeeAllure Sunday stream. Hopefully everything works out just fine. We'll see what happens. My name's Lee. I'm a hypnotist. I do it professionally, which means I get paid for my services. But I also have a nice community on Discord and Reddit and Patreon and here. And I am delighted every Sunday to come live to you and to talk to you about different hypnosis topics and to do some live hypnosis. So won't you join me? Today I'm going to be talking about a super popular hypnosis topic, which is self-hypnosis. Now, this is a book that I just pulled from my bookshelf today. Love the spiral, right? Because don't we all? It is one of the most asked about topics in the hypnosis subreddit. And I think it's so popular because people have this concept of hypnosis of this cure-all, right? And they think, oh, well, if I can just hypnotize myself and tell myself to stop smoking or tell myself to stop eating or tell myself to get over my ex, everything in my life will be fine. But hypnosis is a little bit more nuanced than that. And if you have never been hypnotized before, and maybe sometimes even if you have, a lot of people have no idea what trance is like or how it actually functions or what it works like for them. And that can be problematic because they don't know if they're doing something right and they don't know if they're doing something wrong. And they may spend a lot of time actually reading or researching about hypnosis, but they're not actually doing any internal work, which is where it all boils down to having to happen. So today, I'm going to talk about different ways that a person can get into trance on their own. And then I'm going to give you a shortcut. I've done this before, but we're going to do it again because it's really helpful if people have an understanding of how it can actually work for them and how they can know it works and the different ways that they can make that happen. So welcome and hello. Hello to folks that are in the chat, and if you're not there yet, that's okay too. I'm sure I will see you soon. So hello to both Lycan and Mario. It's nice to have you here. So what is a really great way to get into trance? And, you have to discover the reasons for yourself about going into trance. But let's talk about some ways that a person can go into trance. And my favorite way probably is eye fixation. Now, I happen to have several things that look like this. You may or may not. It doesn't necessarily matter what you look at, but finding something that captures your attention is the easiest way. So hypnosis is about focusing on something consciously so that your unconscious can focus deliberately on something else. It doesn't necessarily mean that everything is going to be exactly perfect and exactly right, but it's a good way to start. So you start out with something that you can focus on, right? Visually. Visual fixation is a really easy way for a lot of people to go into trance, and all you have to do is look at it, right? All you have to do is look at the thing. No matter where it moves, you just find yourself focused on that thing. And when you find yourself focused on that thing, you can notice that even if your eyes get distracted and pulled away for some other reason, they look somewhere else, they are drawn back to that spot and they look at it. And they look at that spot until you go into an altered state. Now, what the heck is an altered state? What does trance even mean? How do I know I'm there? For some people, it feels absolutely no different than being totally conscious. So it can be confusing because how do you know if a thing is going to work, right? So you have to give yourself some convincers, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But you find yourself focused on a thing. I happen to be focused on one of these little corners right here, one of those little Can't quite focus it on the camera, but kind of right there. See where those facets all come together? That's what I'm focused on. So I'm going to focus on that. And when I focus on that, it's easy for me to notice that everything else around has really different properties to me. So I'm focused on that. I can see myself in my monitor. I can actually see the chat window, and oddly enough, because this is a prism, I can see very clearly some of the words that are on my screen behind this as I focus on that corner. My eyes might go a little cross-eyed, totally fine, totally normal, but those are things that I'm sort of seeing but not really seeing. I'm aware that they're there. I know that those words are very sharp, very crisp, very clear. I just had an eye exam the other day, so it's kind of reminding me of that. It's a little funny, but I'm focused on that spot. How do I know that I'm going into trance? Well, I've been going into trance, and I've been taking other people into trance for 14-ish years now, and for me, I'm pretty aware of when I'm there, but I'm also really able to go in and out of trance without too much trouble. I can drop myself into trance and bring myself out. For me, that's the easiest part of all of this. The very easiest part. So I find myself staring, I find myself focused. I can absolutely still talk while I'm in trance. Don't let anybody tell you that trance is a relaxed state, because that's complete and utter bullshit. I have slapped people into trance. You could dance people into trance. You can rough wrestle somebody into trance. There are plenty of ways that a person can go into trance that are not relaxing at all, and I suggest you give them a shot. But for self-hypnosis, I'm looking at the spot. I'm allowing my gaze to fixate on that spot no matter where that spot moves. You can pick a spot on your wall. Your eyes are drawn back to that if they happen to get moved away. And it is easy to find yourself looking at something. So when you look at a thing, and again, this is just one method, I'm going to go over a bunch of other methods, but when you find yourself looking at a thing and focusing on it, for me, I get some different visual cues that I am altering the state that I'm in. If I'm staring at a spot on the wall that is not super near me, maybe 8 to 14 feet away, for example, I start to get a tunnel, literally tunnel vision, that appears between me and the thing I'm staring at. So this tunnel shows up around it. Usually it's sort of gray. I can't really see stuff in my peripheral vision in the same way. And then sometimes it turns a little gray-green. For me personally, the thing I'm staring at feels like it is either moving further away or closer to me, or I feel like I'm moving closer to it or further away from it. But neither one of us is moving. It just feels like that, and I can't actually tell you which is which. So for me, I know that when I start to experience those visual signs, that I am going into a state of trance. That I am open and ready and receptive for whatever the message is that I want now. If you find yourself staring at something and you want to close your eyes, it's totally fine. It's totally normal. A lot of people do that. I actually find it more and more comfortable to keep my eyes open. I still blink. I'm staring, but it's not like a staring contest. It's very natural, very normal. I don't think about it. I don't feel it. I'm not focused on the way my eyes feel. I'm not focused on the way my breathing feels. I am simply in this state where I'm fixated on this spot right here. And I can tell that things are a little bit different than normal. And maybe it's because I know that I'm not really drawn to something else. If I wanted to take myself out of this state, I would simply put this down, and then it would not be in my image anymore, and my head would clear, and I would come back. So I was in a trance state there. I was still very active. I was still talking to you, but I was very fixated on this, as you could probably tell. If you could, you could tell, like, I was very fixated on that spot on this thing. So that's one way you can find yourself going into a state of trance. When you are in a state of trance, you want to encourage yourself to be there. You want to allow yourself to focus enough on the thing so that you can feel the difference, that you're aware of something a little different. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I don't feel like I'm conscious at all. You don't have to be passed out in that same sense. You don't have to feel like you're not there. But for me, like I said, there's the tunnel, there's a little bit of different sensations than what I would normally feel if I was just looking at something for a moment or two, versus being fixated and then allowing myself to get into that state. So that is one technique that a person can use to bring themselves into a state of trance. Another one that a friend of mine in the Netherlands taught me is that you take a piece of string and you tie a whole bunch of knots in it. You know, long string, a couple feet long when you've tied the knots into it maybe, and you hold on to it. And you slide yourself down to the first knot and you let your finger hold there. And your eyes are probably closed. And you allow yourself to go deeply into trance. You don't know what that means. I don't know what that means for you, but you allow your unconscious mind to come to the forefront. Maybe when you start out, you say something to yourself like, I'm going to use this string to drop myself deeply into trance. You don't have to be so specific, whatever works for you. Even if you have this as a thought, like I'm just going to drop myself into trance using this string, every time my unconscious mind knows that I'm ready to go more fully, more deeply, more presently into that state of unconsciousness, my fingers let go and they slide down to the next knot. And when I'm ready to go to the next one, they go down to the next, and so on. So you can drop yourself very deeply into a state of trance by moving from one knot to the next to the next. You have to learn what being in a trance feels like for you, because what I experience in trance is not what other people experience when they're in trance. I have partners that are incredibly good at being in trance. They are very good at amnesia. They are very good at being active while they're in this state of trance. I can be active in a state of trance, but it's a brief momentary thing. If I start to move around too much, my brain does other stuff and all of a sudden I'm very, very awake and conscious again. So when I go into trance, if I'm listening to somebody else's audios, for example, I hear how much of the beginning that I hear, and then I am out like a light. And then I wake up when the awakener tells me to get up. So that's the kind of subject that I am. Whether or not something is going to work for me, I don't know. Do they work? Maybe. I can't tell you. Because I don't listen to a whole lot of other people's audios or do a lot of hypnosis on myself. I just do a lot to other people. But these are the best suggestions I can give you for how you can get into trance on your own. So, okay, here we are. You can focus on something. You could listen to something. You could listen to your own voice. You could write a script for yourself and say, this is the stuff I want to accomplish. You could write a script. You could record it. You could do all those things that let you get to a place, that let you hear a message that you want to hear, and that you can find yourself acting on it. So once you go into a state of trance, allow yourself to pay attention to what it feels like, because for a lot of people, they have no idea what being in a trance means for them. They have literally no clue what being in a trance means or feels like or is for them. And so even though, like, I can tell you that when I'm in a trance, everything gets fuzzy and gray-green and I feel like there's some kind of movement, you may have a completely different experience. So you have to learn what your experience is. And I can tell you that I would never have had that experience if I hadn't started to do that. If I hadn't started to stare at a spot on the wall and just let myself go there. Sometimes I feel like my eyes will open up really wide. Sometimes I feel like my body just like goes pretty still, like I'm still moving, I'm not stopped. But I feel like there is some movement going on, back and forth, and it feels kind of cool to me. I haven't had an experience as a child that I feel was very hypnotic, and it had some similar things going on to it. And if I had probably been more adept when I was a wee lass, I might have been a much better piano player than I am now, which is to say I'm not very good at all. Anyway, but the idea that you can feel different may or may not be true for you. So I just want you to keep that in mind, but it should feel like something. At some point in time, if you do it enough, you should be like, oh, cool, I'm in a state of trance. It shouldn't be so exciting that you take yourself out. It should simply be fun enough that your brain is like, oh, this is where I want to be. Let's hang out here for a while. Well, then you allow the message, whatever the message happens to be, make some changes inside you, and then you find yourself waking up after a set amount of time, or after the end if you've made an audio, after the end of your audio, or after the changes have been made, which I think is really the best way to go about it if you're doing self-hypnosis. Okay, so you find yourself fixated on something, or you find yourself allowing your unconscious mind to tell you when you are in a state ready to move on to the next state. You're learning what it feels like when you go into a trance, and when you learn what it feels like to go into a trance, then you can find yourself figuring out what kind of messages resonate for you, for yourself, so that you can make those adjustments and make those changes. So what do you want to do? I want to be able to focus when I study, right? Like, what if you're in school and you're like, I want to focus when I study so that I can pass my test? Those are actually two separate things that we can work on. But the first thing I would say is that if you want to find yourself focused on a task, doesn't have to be study, but no matter what it is, if you find yourself wanting to be focused on a task, how would you phrase that? What would you tell yourself? How would you bring that to life inside your unconscious mind? One way you might do that is to give yourself words that you can write down and read, and then you might give yourself visions based on those words. So maybe you write down words that sound like or look like, the next time I go to the library to study for a big test, I am going to allow myself to be drawn in to the knowledge that I have to learn. I'm going to be drawn in by the knowledge that I have to learn in order to let me have a really great experience. I'm going to find myself drawn to the knowledge. I'm going to notice that I pick the knowledge up easily. I'm going to understand what I'm taking in. I'm going to make sure that I am learning as much about this topic as I possibly can as needed. I'm going to make sure that I understand the reference between the new stuff I'm learning and the old stuff and how this all puts together. And I'm going to notice that I am absolutely focused on this thing. I'm going to set myself a goal of this many pages or this amount of learning, these specific subtopics within the topic itself to learn, to really feel like I know. And I'm going to allow my unconscious mind to block everything else out. I'm going to essentially put blinders on myself so that nothing else outside that disturbs me, and the knowledge, the documents I'm looking at, the books, the papers, the videos, the recordings, whatever it is that you're accessing to bring in to your brain, like all of that is incredibly important to you. It feels important. It like pulls you in. You really want to know this stuff, and it feels like when you read it, you understand it. It feels like if you don't understand it, you just go back, you look at it, you can reference something else, you can look up another word, but you're drawn back to the stuff that you have to learn, and it feels really good to find yourself focused on that, to get that learning in, and then to finish it. You might discover that as you find yourself doing this type of thing again and again and again with different learning chunks, with different studying things that you find yourself doing, that you can easily and effortlessly know that when you sit down at that chair, at that desk, at the library, that you find yourself in a state where these things automatically happen. Whether you're just reading, whether you're like taking a practice test, whether you're looking at a whole bunch of different pieces of information and trying to put them all together in your brain, that your unconscious mind realizes that it has a task, that it is focused on that task, that you can go into the correct state to take in the knowledge so it effectively allows you to learn it, so that when it's time for a paper that you have to write or when it's time for a test that you have to take, that your brain just knows the information, has logically laid it out in your head, and allows you to put it down on paper, in a video form, in an audio, however your presentation of this material has to go. So you can talk about it, you can write about it, you can answer questions about it in test form or verbally, however it comes, so that your brain is right there, right? So you want to tell yourself that you're drawn to the material, that nothing outside you and the study matters. It doesn't have a pull, you're not distracted by it, you're very drawn to the information, the material, and that's what you want to learn. When you go into trance and you think about those things, you think about what it is that you have written down. Like, I want to go to the library, I want to sit down in whichever spot's available, because the space that you're in shouldn't matter. In fact, there have been studies that show that if you change seats, if you move around when you're doing studying, it allows that information to get into your head a little bit better. So maybe someday you're sitting in a comfy chair and there's people walking by. Maybe someday you're at a desk and a chair, doesn't matter. However you learn, your brain allows you to like take in knowledge no matter where you are, to understand it, to the very best of your ability to be able to apply it, right? That's why we go to school, to apply our knowledge. And then when you're done, the knowledge is in your head. Great. So you want to find yourself thinking when you're in that trance state that maybe you can imagine yourself in that library or in that study hall or wherever you happen to be. And you are sitting there with the books in front of you, and you can imagine yourself. Nothing else getting in your way. You've got those blinders, you've got that bubble on, and you are focused on your work, and nothing else gets in your way. So you might say, I'm going to go into trance. I'm going to drop myself into a state of trance, and when I'm in this state of trance, I'm going to get really, really good at studying so that I can pass tests, so that I can write papers, so that I can be knowledgeable about this information, so that I can put it to good use now and from now on. And I say from now on, you could say at a job or something else, however you want to, handle that. It's just, you want to make sure that you're better at it, not just now, but you can use it in the future. So you give yourself that knowledge. You say, I'm going to be focused on these things until I really get it. I'm going to work for this amount of time, whether you want to set yourself a time limit or you want to tell yourself, I'm going to study until I know that my brain has got it, and then we're going to be good. Whatever preferred method you have of making sure that you have studied enough to understand, to be able to re-share that knowledge is up to you. So if you just are like, I have to do an hour a day on this topic, then you tell yourself that you're going to do an hour. You can set an alarm if you want, but you can allow your unconscious mind to know what an hour is and to, make sure that you're focused for that hour, and then you can take a break. If you need more time, you can just do it again. So if you wanted to make an audio that talks about these things, you can absolutely do that. Or you could tell yourself, you could just write down a piece of paper, I'm going to study for my econ test. I'm going to study from 7 to 9 o'clock. I'm going to be in the library. I'm going to be very focused on this stuff. Nothing else is going to distract me. This information is really important. My brain knows how important it is. It's going to take in this information. It's going to make sure that I really understand it. Maybe I take a practice quiz. Maybe I, look at some further chapters in the book to make sure that I get the further back points at references. However you want to do it, it's up to you. But you tell yourself you're going to do these things, and you let go. You just let it happen. How do you know you're going into trance? You can give yourself convincers. And sometimes the convincers are things like, I'm going to wake up after an hour, or I'm going to come out of trance. I'm going to come out of this study trance, after an hour. And you come out and you're like, oh, what time is it? Oh, it's been an hour. So those are things that you can do that let you know that it just feels so very good. Yeah, hypnosis is really great for people studying and taking exams, because it allows you to just be like, oh, the knowledge that I have in my head can come out when I need to. Like, I don't know what kind of messages you gave yourself, but I always say things like, when I need to write this paper, or when I need to take this test, the information that I have taken in, my unconscious mind finds it like that. It finds it like that. I say it, I write it down in whatever form you need, and there we go. I have successfully answered it. So the knowledge is there. When I need the knowledge, boom, my unconscious mind makes sure that I have it available and accessible, and it allows me to take tests more quickly. It allows me to write papers more quickly. It allows me to answer people's questions more easily and more effortlessly. The information is there. The information wants to come out. I have no fear, no worries, no concerns about that, because it's just there. So one other thing that people always ask about is, I want to get over my ex, and they don't want to go see a professional hypnotist. And my best advice for people who want to do hypnosis for that is to, and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, but is to distance yourself from the emotions of what that person did to you and how that made you feel. So if you feel really angry, or if you feel betrayed, or if you feel heartbroken or whatever, you can take those emotions and you can literally imagine them in your past. This is my past. But I'm going to say that you should probably go back and look at that. I think it was, I don't remember, it was procrastination or something else we were talking about, but I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'll try and put the link in the description so you can see what that is. Anyway. So, all right, you want to do self-hypnosis. You have learned that you are going to practice doing hypnosis to get yourself into a state where it feels a little different, where you are aware that it feels a little different. You want to make sure that your unconscious mind has a clear message of what you want to do. So when I talk about that, I talk about how you could write down what you want to say, or you could record what you want to do, so that your brain has an idea of exactly what it is that it's going to focus on. You can read a card that you've written out with your little script. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be major. I'm going to go into trance. I'm going to allow myself to create a study bubble around my head that when I have that on, I'm only focused on the information that I have to take in. The information flows into me really easily. I understand it really well. I can make sure that I'm going to study for an hour every single day, like at whatever time you chose. And then when I'm ready for this, I will know that I'm prepared, because I'm going to take a little prep quiz, and it's going to show me that I am learning along the way. You can always take a quiz ahead of time and be like, how did I do? And then study, and then take another one after to see if you are advancing in the knowledge that you have. So, but how else can you go into trance? So a lot of people like to lie down, and they think that that's most helpful because they think hypnosis is like sleep. Hypnosis is not really like sleep, but lying down can lead to people actually sleeping. So if you are like me and you blank out in the middle and you do not know what's going on, if you listen to an audio, for example, it might be helpful for you to be in like a comfy chair as opposed to lying down to take the message in. Maybe. You have to figure out what works for you, and that is going to involve some trial and error, or at least some trials, until you learn the way that your brain responds and the way that you find yourself, giving into the suggestions. So I talked about convincers, and I talked about how, maybe if you set a time limit, your brain can use that as a convincer. But what are some other convincers that you could give to yourself so that you've definitely been in trance? Like for me, I always wake up at the count up of the audio that I'm listening to. So I know that I've been in trance that way. I have also made entire recordings while deeply in trance. And I had no idea what I was saying. I had no idea what I was doing. I was literally lying there, talking into my microphone, making a recording, and I count myself up at the end. And the effects are really quite astounding. I've experienced this a couple times. I think it's super powerful. You can do that too. Like maybe you don't respond in the same way that I do, but you can definitely make yourself a recording and talk about what it is that you want to accomplish. And you can allow your brain to then be like, okay, I guess I'm done with this. So we're just going to count to 10 and, bring myself up and see what happens. You can also give yourself tasks to do, right? So if a convincer isn't, I went into trance and then I aced my econ test, which I think would be actually the best benefit of that. There might be some other things that you find yourself wanting to do. I would like to suggest that if you are trying to do a thing, you want to start out not overwhelmingly large. You don't want to say, well, I want to get fit, so I'm going to exercise for an hour every single day. I feel like you want to set your sights on doing something that's realistic, and you want to make sure that you can do the things that you think you want to do, that you have time to do the things that you think you want to do. So if you clear out your schedule and you make sure that you have time to do some of these things, that's a good start. And maybe an hour a day is absolutely realistic for you, and you can make that work, and you just need a little bit more desire and drive to do that. What can you do to make those things happen? Well, you can take a picture of how you are now, and maybe you want to put in some of the things that you find undesirable. Like maybe you sit on the sofa and you are eating potato chips and you are zoning out. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone or through YouTube on your laptop or something, and you feel a little unproductive and you want to start becoming more productive. You want to start doing things in a little different way. So maybe you find yourself seeing that image. I talk a lot about NLP techniques. NLP is neuro-linguistic programming. It was developed partially from hypnosis and hypnotic techniques, also obviously language, and from family therapy. So it can have, it was designed to allow people to be effective and to model behavior that they wanted to do. So I added into this the wheelbarrow, the wheelhouse of the things that I do. The wheelbarrow, we're just going to toss everything in and bring it along with us. The wheelhouse of the things that we find ourselves wanting to do or being able to do successfully, because I think that being able to know what you want and to know what you don't want is super helpful. So, for example, you might find yourself with a very clear vision of you sitting on the sofa, scrolling on your phone, zoning out, eating potato chips or whatever, and you realizing that that's not the you want. Like you can examine yourself very clearly and be like, okay, but that's not really making me happy. I feel like I don't have enough energy. I know that when I exercise, people get more energy. I also want to find myself eating better, but I definitely don't want to just sit on the sofa and waste my time doing that. So you have that image of what you look like on the sofa, and you have a new image of what you want to do. Like you have an image of yourself going to the gym, you have an image of yourself at the gym walking on the treadmill or lifting weights or working on any of those machines that they have over there. However, you can find yourself, imagining that. Maybe you've been scrolling on TikTok and seeing all the exercise videos that people post, and you're like, well, that looks great. I'd love to have a body like that. First of all, please set realistic expectations. These people are modeling their perfect moments. Don't worry about what your steps are to get there. Just worry about doing the work. But allow yourself to go, okay, well, this is a thing I don't want, the sitting on the sofa, eating these things, scrolling mindlessly. I want to be actively engaged in this exercise and getting my body fit. So you allow yourself to take that image of you sitting on the sofa, and you can either put it in your past. You can make it really tiny, really small, move it to your past, and you can make the image of being at the gym really big, bright, bold, vivid, attractive, interesting. You put it right here and then off to your future a little bit. That's for me. You have to figure out your timelines on your own. Highly recommend. We'll talk about that another time perhaps. And I've definitely talked about that before as well. But you make the thing that you want to do as appealing as you possibly can. Most people are either drawn towards something or they're running away from something. So if you want to do both, i.e. you run away from that image of you sitting on the sofa, eating the chips, scrolling through TikTok, even if it's been inspirational, to you being at the gym, working out, eating correctly, whatever, know that you can do that. So it feels better to be drawn toward a thing as opposed to running away from something else. If you sort of forget, if you forget that you ever really were drawn to sitting on the sofa, and allow yourself to be drawn to going to the gym, putting on your workout clothes, going to the gym. You can even set up routines and habits that help you, like laying out your clothes or packing a bag, whatever works best for you. But allow your unconscious mind to get into that state of allowing you to be like, oh, I'm going to do this thing. And when your brain gets into that place of, oh, I'm going to do this thing, it can feel so good to make these things happen. I want to talk about pleasure for a second. And I don't just mean the sexual kind. I mean pleasure that allows you to feel good about the things that you do. The reward systems that we have in our brain allow us to get some sort of brain chemical reward from scrolling through our phone and sitting on the sofa eating potato chips. Like our food has been engineered and our entertainment has been engineered to reward our brain. We kind of need to shut that off. We kind of need to say this is no longer a reward system for us. We're going to find it rewarding when we, walk a mile on the treadmill. We're going to find it rewarding when we, instead of walking a mile on the treadmill, walk a mile or walk for a minute and run for a minute, walk for a minute and run for a minute. Like that becomes a thing that you find you are much more intrigued and interested in than in sitting down. And your brain can know that it just feels more correct to do those things than before. So the way you find yourself phrasing the information can be helpful, but allow your brain to just know that it's easy to drop deeply into trance. It's easy to get a bag ready. It's easy to just unconsciously let yourself be in that position where your brain says, oh, well, today is a Tuesday. Tuesday is a gym day. Monday night, we already made a bag up for ourselves. How did we do that? Well, we did our laundry on Sunday. On Monday, we packed a bag. Our unconscious mind may have done it for us. And then on Tuesday, we just brought the bag with us. And then we were ready to go to the gym, and everything worked out really nicely and really easily. And when you find yourself doing that, you know that you are going to go home and you might end up on the sofa at some point in time. But you might, instead of finding yourself eating those chips, you might have found that you eat something else and it makes you happier and it fuels your body and you feel really great. Maybe you make a smoothie with a bunch of protein powder and you're like, oh, this is really tasty. I had no idea this was going to be so good. I feel really good. You might be sore after your workout. You're going to learn to enjoy it. Don't overdo it. Again, get yourself into these habits by doing these things that feel really good. Don't bite off more than you can chew, and start making these things happen. So when I talk about the way that you can do self-hypnosis, you can do it by any of those methods. It doesn't really matter. But I think that a lot of people still have problems going into trance on their own. They have problems setting suggestions on their own, and they are afraid that they don't know how to do it. So they spend a lot of time researching how to make these things happen. Like a lot of people, I can't even tell you how many people over the years that I've seen that they were like, oh, I've been studying hypnosis for years and years and years, but they've never actually done it. Not to themselves, not to anybody else. So what's the point? Like, let's get over that hump and let's allow ourselves to be hypnotized. Let's allow ourselves to go into trance. Let's allow ourselves to take in suggestion that's healthy and good for us, that gets us to where we want to go, that can allow us to change our lives. So what we're going to do for our trance session today is I'm going to hypnotize you. Shock, right? So I'm going to do the hypnosis, and you are going to allow yourself to know that you can go into trance anytime you want. After we do this, you should be able to go into trance anytime you want, whether it's a waking trance or a more comatose type. You can go into trance, you can get things done, you can set triggers for yourself, and you can accomplish the things that you wanted to accomplish all along. So how do we do that? So let's begin by you thinking of how you might want to go into trance. I would advise that you're in a comfy spot, getting you to that comfy chair. Don't be lying down. If you have to, prop yourself up against your pillows. You're at least reclining. Stare at something or close your eyes. One of my favorite inductions is the Elman induction, which is a multi-part induction that uses fractionation. That's when you go into and out of trance. But we're going to do some of that today. I like the main part, which is a closing your eye thing. But if you do not want to close your eyes, you can certainly focus on something and allow everything else to work just fine. Even if your eyes are open, they're still going to do the relaxing part. So let that happen. Anyway, and absolutely, yes, like an update your reward.exe. I love that. It's a very clever idea. So, all right. So as long as you're comfortable, we're going to begin. Close your eyes. As you close your eyes, let all the muscles around your eyes relax. Let each and every muscle around your eye close and relax. And let those eye muscles relax to the point where even if you were to try to open them, they would simply stay shut. If you want to be a little obstinate and you're like, well, I could still open my eyes at any time. Well, of course you could. That's not the point. But if you're that kind of person, pretend that you're a child. Pretend that you are a child who is pretending that their eyes have been super glued shut and they couldn't possibly open them if they wanted to. So your eyes are super glued shut and you try to open them, you let more light in, but your eyelids stay shut to the bottom. You can't open them. And then when you try to open them and they simply are so relaxed that they will not open, you're going to stop trying. When you stop trying, you're going to let the muscles totally relax again. And then you're going to let that relaxation spread throughout the rest of your body. This is for all the people that like the idea of hypnotics and relaxation. And then as those muscles relax, as your eyes stay shut, you can find yourself dropping deeply into trance as the rest of your body just simply succumbs to how good it feels to be completely and totally in that state of giving in to the suggestions and of letting go. You might feel that your body becomes heavier, or you might discover that some part of you feels like it's lighter. Some part of you might discover that your head feels super light, like it's floating up off the rest of your body. You might notice that you sit up a little straighter. It feels like you're floating. However you find yourself experiencing that state of trance, just let it happen. Embrace it. Let yourself be aware of the feelings that you are experiencing, that you are creating in yourself. Maybe there's a tingle somewhere. Maybe it feels like you can't move your feet. However it happens, just let it happen. Embrace that feeling, embrace those sensations, and allow yourself to get to a point where your unconscious mind is delighted and happy to be here. I'm going to have you do a few things while you're in this state. Don't worry. You're going to do them unconsciously. It's going to feel really good to do them unconsciously. And your unconscious mind is going to set you up so that you can get to this point where your unconscious mind is accepting of the suggestions that you want to give it and is ready to make sure that you make the changes that you're so very interested in making happen. No matter how deeply or lightly in trance you go, your unconscious mind can always hold you in the perfect place so that the suggestions have the most powerful, positive impact within you and for you. But right here, right now, all you're doing is dropping down deeply into trance. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to let one of your hands begin to feel lighter and lighter. One of your hands and arms is going to feel lighter and lighter, and I don't know which one it is. But as your hand and arms feel lighter and lighter, it's going to rise up. It might be slowly, it might be quickly. If your hands are tangled together, just don't worry. The hand that feels lighter and lighter is going to just let it happen. It's going to rise up. It's going to come up. And as it comes up, you can find yourself dropping more firmly into that state of trance. Your hand is going to rise up. As it rises up, when it gets to about your eye level, you're going to open your eyes. You're going to notice that your hand is there. Just stare at your hand for a moment. Close your eyes. Let your hand touch your forehead and then drop back down. As your hand drops back down, you can notice that you might sink a little more deeply into trance, but you've touched your forehead. And when you touch your forehead, you are in a state of trance. So from now on, your unconscious mind can know that if you want to go into trance, if you need to be in a state of self-hypnosis, all you have to do is to touch your forehead, drop your hand, and notice that you find yourself going deeply into a state of trance that is useful, a state of trance that allows you to accept your own messages, to respond to them powerfully, strongly, and accurately, and to give in to the suggestions that you're giving yourself. You're going to frame your suggestions so that they are designed to work for you as strongly as you'd like them to work. You're going to put things in the past as necessary. You're going to move things right in front of you into your future as you want them to be active in your life from now on. And you're going to allow yourself to feel how good it is to make these things happen. So from now on, anytime you find yourself wanting to go into trance, you can touch that same spot on your forehead, let your hand drop down, go into trance for as long as you like, for as long as is necessary, for as long as is helpful. When you have made the changes that you want and need to make, when you have made the changes that are the reason you went into trance to begin with, your unconscious mind can simply and easily bring you back up, feeling refreshed, feeling amazing, ready to tackle whatever you need to do. So let your unconscious mind hold on to those ideas and those messages, that you can go into trance anytime you want, that you're going to do it by touching your forehead and then letting your hand drop, dropping you down deeply into trance, that the message that you have given yourself ahead of time, or the one that you're going to speak to yourself, whether you've written this down or you're going to pop an audio in, that these messages are going to sink in powerfully and easily for you, that you're going to find yourself taking those suggestions in effortlessly and easily, and that when you need to do something subconsciously, your unconscious mind can just know you have a place to go and a way to go easily and effortlessly into trance. It will only work when it's safe and appropriate to do so. If it's not, it won't. So use it when it is safe and appropriate, and the more you find yourself doing it, the more effective it will be. So let your unconscious mind hold on to that right now, that you have a way to go deeply into a trance state for yourself, where you can give yourself the messages that you want and need to hear, so that you can make changes in your life for the better. As you find yourself holding on to those messages, I'm going to count from 1 to 10. As you find yourself coming up, know that we're going to test this when we are back wide awake. So let your unconscious mind know that you're going to test this to make sure that it works for you. And then, if needed, we'll do something different, or we'll do something again until your brain understands and realizes that you are here to learn how to do self-hypnosis, to give yourself that idea about how to make it happen, how easily you can drop into a state of trance, what that state feels like for you. Take note of what it feels like when you go deeply into trance. You can be sure that you're there. Allow your unconscious mind to realize that you do this only when it's safe and appropriate, and that you can reap incredible benefits. So let yourself think about how good that's going to be for you. So wide awake on the count of 10 with these messages, these suggestions implanted in all the places inside you they need to be in order for this to be as effective going forward as possible. So wide awake on 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Wide awake. So when you're back, give yourself a moment or two if you need it. A couple things. Some people can become more and more suggestible when they are wide awake after doing hypnosis, even if they're doing it with themselves. So I always say, don't go buying any used cars or something along those lines. You want to make sure that you're giving yourself some time to clear your head so that you're not doing silly things after hypnosis. So you find yourself in that state where you are wider and wider awake. You can shake things off, move around a little bit. If you find that you are ready to test these things out, what are you going to do? When you're ready, you're going to tap your forehead, let your hand drop yourself into trance. You're going to give yourself a message, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's, I'm going to have a really great day today. I'm going to feel super good today. I'm going to come up and do this one thing, and when I've done this thing, I'm going to feel amazing, and when I've given myself this message, I'm going to come out of trance, but I'm actually going to wake you guys up again. So find yourself coming all the way up on the count of 10 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Take a nice deep breath in. 8, move yourself around a little bit. 9, open up your eyes if they were closed. And 10, wide awake. And then allow yourself to write down little messages. I want to do blank. And allow your unconscious mind to know that that's what you want to do, that you're going to make these things happen, and that you're going to feel really good about doing them. I'm going to do this, and it's going to feel really great inside me when I change my sheets, when I take the dog out for a walk, when I plant that garden, whatever it happens to be that you find yourself wanting to do, when I read that book. Your unconscious mind, when it feels really good, you're more likely to accept those suggestions. One other thing that I would say is to thank your brain for doing the work. I'm not joking. I am never joking. When my brain does something that I think is really good, I will pat myself on the head and say, good job, brain, or good brain, because I have noticed over the years that when you interact with your unconscious and you thank it for doing the things that you wanted to do, it is more likely to work with you in the future. You can only be so unkind to yourself and still expect to get places. So allow your brain to make these changes, notice how everything works, and feel how good that is. So definitely go ahead and test the way that your unconscious mind goes into trance, whether you do it now or whether you do it when the video is over. Allow your brain to get to that place where it knows that's the trigger, I go into trance. You can practice it when it is both safe and unsafe so that you know that your unconscious mind will only respond when it is safe and appropriate for you to do it. I suggest just writing down a few things that you'd like your unconscious mind to work on. You might even be like, I'm going to start setting up this thing. And then when this thing is set up in my brain, my unconscious mind is just going to automatically wake me up, and I'm going to know that these things are going to be taken care of. So that is it for today. Unless you have, if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them. I just want to thank you all for being here, and I'd like to thank you for feeling what that's, for feeling what it's like to go deeply into trance on your own, to feel how interesting it is for you to be in that state of happy trance on your own, allowing your unconscious mind to just feel really, really great about what it's like to be there, to know that you can do all of these things. It's really simple and easy for you to be in that state of listening to yourself, of giving yourself suggestions, there are plenty of other ways to do self-hypnosis. But I find that like visualization and eye fixation is really one of the easiest ones. You could stare at that. I was thinking of a candle. You don't want to faceplant into a candle with a burning flame, obviously. But then that led me to think of that Christmas time thing where it's just like burning logs, and you can play it on your screen or like your TV, and there's music behind it. So, excellent. I'm glad your forehead tap is working. You can move that anywhere you want, by the way. If you don't like that forehead tap, you can move it someplace else. You could tap like your suprasternal notch right here. That's this place right here. You could tap in here. That's a good place to tap. We've got like meridians in our body, and different places have different impact, but that's a good one. But the forehead is pretty good too if you wanted to tap on that. So however you want to tap, it can feel really good. And the more you do these things, the easier it should become for you. And first, I talked a little bit about fractionation. So it's when you go into trance and come up, and into trance and come up. You can probably get yourself into a very deep state of trance. Like there's one thing I want to work on, but I've got like 12 things I want to work on. And you're brand new to this. I suggest that you take one thing, you do the forehead tap, you allow your unconscious mind to work on that one thing. Pick the thing that you think is the simplest, like the thing that requires one thing and not 29 things, maybe. And you let your brain drop you into trance, figure out how it's going to make those things happen, bring you back up, and then do it again with something else, and then do it again with something else. Do it, take half an hour and do it repeatedly and see what your brain does. At the end of it, you should be in a very, very deep state of trance, and it should feel really good. You'll get to know what that feels like. Your unconscious mind will get used to the idea of what you want to accomplish and how it can make those things happen. And if they don't work out, don't worry about it. You can do it again. You can rewrite what you want to do. You can ask me if there's something that you're like, my brain doesn't seem to be grasping this. What am I doing wrong? How can I make this even better? Or there's always a way to make things work for you better than you expected. And a lot of people do a lot of self-hypnosis already. And they may be great resources for how you can do things other than this. But this should be able to give you a little shortcut to going into trance at the very least, and then you can find a way to tell yourself the messages that you really need to hear in order to get done what you want to get done. So, all right, so thank you very much for being here. I hope you found something useful from this. I hope you liked learning how to do some self-hypnosis. If you have additional questions about it, feel free to drop them into not the chat, but as a comment, and I will get back to it as soon as I can. So feel free, or you can email me. And thanks for being here. There are ads in this thing. Everyone's monetizing their life, including me. So thank you for supporting me. And I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. And have a